Hey everybody, Erek here, and welcome back to another video. Yes, it's been a little while. I've been super busy. We'll get into that soon, but I have some really exciting stuff to show you today, and I'm actually really excited myself to show everything to you guys today. So get comfy, get a beverage, sit on the couch, get yourself ready, because the next little while is going to be dedicated to showing off the biggest and possibly most epic SNES haul, Super Nintendo haul, that I couldn't have even imagined. So stay tuned, it's gonna be good. So this video essentially starts about 2 months ago while I was scrolling through Facebook and I see my local mom and pop retro game shop back home in the States, Microgame Play and Trade, located in upstate New York. I see them post this right here, a Earthbound cartridge for Super Nintendo, and of course the player's guide. And if you know anything about me, I love Earthbound. Of course, I've done the Boundless Earthbound tribute album. It's a great, phenomenal game, probably my favorite game of all time. And I've owned it before, and I've always wanted to try and get it back. But for me personally, I always thought it was going to be the unobtainable. So I see this. I'm good friends with the owner, Chris, from Microgame, and I sent him a message. I'm like, hey, would you mind holding this for me? Because I'm actually kind of interested in it. I looked at it for a second. I was like, oh no, I don't know if I'll be able to do it. But then I said, this is my chance. This is my chance to get it. So here we have, many, many weeks later, finally showed up in the post yesterday, Earthbound for Super Nintendo with the player's guide. Now, let me tell you what, this is absolutely fascinating just to be holding it in my hand. Honestly, I can't even believe that it's real. This is such a special game. If you guys want to learn more about the game, I've done a top 5 reasons to play Earthbound, of course, now that it's accessible on the Nintendo Switch. But it's really cool to be holding this guidebook in my hand. I've never actually looked through the guidebook. I know recently Nintendo has released a PDF version of it, so you can kind of skim through it, but nothing beats having this in your hands. And plus, the smell of it as well. It smells like an old book. The only thing that this doesn't come with is the scratch and sniff stickers, although it does have the mail-in postcard here. So if you wanted to send that in, I believe you can. There's a whole dissertation on like what kind of free things you get, so check that video to learn more. But this is my holy grail game, and I could not pass up the opportunity to get this again. So thank you, Chris. And by the way, there's a couple more things here from Microgame as well, so check this out. Aside from Earthbound, Chrono Trigger is also one of my favorite games of all time. I'd probably say it's number 2 on the list there, with Final Fantasy VII being number 3. But Chrono Trigger is another game that I've owned before, and of course in my early 20s you sell things off and you don't really think anything of it until you find that all these games that you love and have unfortunately sold off over the years have inflated in price, you know, hundreds of if not thousands of percent. So Chrono Trigger is a game that I couldn't pass up as well. I actually, when I had Earthbound on hold, I said to him, hey, do you happen to have Chrono Trigger? And lo and behold, they had that. I cannot wait to play this again. I love Chrono Trigger. I love the art style. This is pretty much like the holy grail of JRPGs, all the heavy hitters of JRPG games, like, you know, the music directors, the scenario directors, the story directors, all that stuff. All those guys basically came in, the video game JRPG all-stars came together to make Chrono Trigger. Not only that, this one came with the instruction booklet, which is super cool to have, super special to be able to flick through that and learn more about the game. It also came with this super cool poster, which would have came in the original box. So this features artwork by Akira Toriyama, who of course is most famously known for Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, and Dragon Quest. Very, very iconic artwork. And of course, on the back here, we have a map of like 2300 AD, which is where you get Robo. You've got the Epoch. You've got the Medieval Kingdom, 600 AD, which is where you get Frog, the End of Time. Chrono's World, 1000 AD, which is of course where the Millennial Fair is. Classic, iconic music as well. So it's such a fantastic game. And of course, while I'm going, might as well grab the official player's guide. I've never looked at this player's guide. It's in pretty good shape. Some pages are kind of falling off, but it's one of those things that when you have the opportunity to get them, you can't sleep on them anymore. These games are becoming incredibly expensive. You can find them on eBay, but you're going to be paying eBay prices and stuff like that. So shout out again to Chris from Microgame. So please go check them out. if you ask nicely, Microgame will probably ship to you. So go give their Facebook page a like. And by the way, that's not it. So next up we have Mario RPG Legend of the Seven Stars. This is a really cool game, and it's a game that I only have started to play for the first time. I stream 3 times a week on Twitch. You can check the link down below to follow me on there. And I've been playing this on the Super Nintendo Classic, and I figured if I have the opportunity to play the game on original hardware, well, why not? This is a really cool game, and it's a really great entry to JRPGs if you've never played JRPGs before, or if you've never played a game like this. All the games that I got from Chris at Microgame come with reproduction cases, of course, to keep them safe. And not only that, Mario RPG comes with the instruction manual, which is really cool. It's just, like I said before, with the Chrono Trigger and Earthbound stuff, it's just really special to envelop yourself in the experience that you otherwise wouldn't get unless you pay for like limited run games, you know, super special editions or collector's editions. This just is a relic from a time where all these games came with posters and guidebooks and all that stuff. And it's just sad to see these things kind of go away, but I would consider myself now a collector and preservationist. I wasn't really going to be collecting Super Nintendo games ever again until I kind of got the bug when I saw Earthbound and Chrono Trigger and Mario RPG on the Microgame Facebook page. So if you want to support a local mom and pop shop, go follow Microgame Play and Trade in Clay, New York, upstate New York, of course. They probably will ship to you if you ask them nicely. So keep an eye out and go support them. Chris is a really great friend of mine. So thank you again, Chris, for hooking me up with these 3 Holy Grail games. I'm super stoked to own them. So hey, stay tuned for some more pickups happening right now. So here's another Chrono Trigger for you. This was sent in by my great friend James in the UK, James from YouTube channel D Review Ting. He sent me a NTSC-J complete in box copy of Chrono Trigger. Piggybacking off of Chrono Trigger, this is really cool. It's great to have Super Famicom variant. I love this. This plays just fine on my PAL Super Nintendo with converter cartridge and stuff like that. So it's one of those inevitable things that you have to have if you want to play import games. A game like this would play just fine in your United States Super Nintendo. You just have to essentially cut tabs off the inside of the cartridge slot, whatever. You can look that up if you want to get into that. But it comes with the Japanese manual and, of course, the plastic insert for all the Super Famicom games as they did back then. So it's really cool to have this. It's super special to hold this in my hands. And thank you again, James. You can go check out his YouTube channel. He's a fellow retro game collector and a great friend of the show, a great friend of the channel. Great guy overall, so please go support his channel. Check him out. So let's check out some complete in box games that I have bought for the Super Nintendo. So now that I've gone on this tangent with Super Nintendo stuff, I just figured, you know what? We'll go ahead and clear out all of our modern games. So a couple of months ago, I posted like, I can't stop buying games, help. And I was holding, you know, a lot of Switch games and PS4 games, PS5 games. 98% of those I ended up selling. I ended up selling most of my modern game collection with amiibos and like Genesis Minis and all that stuff, all this stuff that has just essentially been sitting there. And I just figured, let's go ahead and reinvest all of our collection into stuff that I'm actually going to treasure and actually going to play and enjoy. And I tell you what, I have been enjoying a lot of games, starting with Final Fantasy II. The Final Fantasy II is a really interesting game and a game that I have never actually played. For those who are maybe unfamiliar, Final Fantasy II is actually Final Fantasy IV, canonically speaking, but it was released as the second iteration of Final Fantasy in the West. It's a really cool entry point in the series, and I think this is probably the best point to enter Final Fantasy because you can see some of those similar mechanics and battle mechanics and JRPG mechanics that you're familiar with now in turn-based JRPGs, but this game kind of made them a little bit more streamlined and introduced them to gamers. So I just think Final Fantasy II is a really great game. So this, of course, is complete in box, comes with all the manuals, and I think a poster. So you've got a giant world guide, Final Fantasy II map collection. That's pretty cool. So you got all the town maps, and I think you've got some dungeon maps as well. They don't really cover the late game stuff. I'm almost finished this game. I think it's a really great game. It does have that classic difficulty spike to it that you would expect of course. Now, what's funny about this is, while I flick through the manual here, what's funny about this is this game is an NTSC game, of course, a United States game that I bought here in Australia. So you can find them somewhat cheaper than average, of course, because a lot of people can't play these games unless they have imported their American Super Nintendos here, or you use converter cartridges, which I have, which allows me to play NTSC games on a PAL Super Nintendo. So this is really cool. I'm really enjoying Final Fantasy II. I think it's a great game. I know you can play it now in the Pixel collection, or the Pixel Remaster collection, which is available on Steam. Hopefully they bring that to consoles, but this is a really great game. The story is really great. The translation is a little bit rough on this particular Super Nintendo version. Some spell names are a bit different as well, so I've been following guides, and some spells and some items aren't the same as what you would expect. Now, of course, like Firaga or Fire or whatever is known as Fire 1, 2, and 3. So you can kind of gather what it is when you read the guides. And also this game, as well as all these other games, are pretty well untouched in terms of like label and the actual cartridge inside. Like, this is still bright green, so it's been pretty much untouched. And I want to give a shout out to my friend Lee from Legion Gaming. I've been replacing the Super Nintendo game batteries, so I can obviously continue to play and save. But I kind of messed this one up a little bit, so Lee came to the rescue and helped out there. So if you want to go check out that surgical procedure, I'll leave a link down below to Legion Gaming's channel. Thank you so much again for helping me out with this, so I can finally continue to play and save the game and save the world inevitably. Okay, next up for the complete unboxed games, here we have Zombies Ate My Neighbors. Now you can see the sticker here, it says US import. These are really interesting. Like I said, a lot of people bought these maybe back in the 90s and used conversion cartridges, or they would have bought American Super Nintendos. This particular game does not work using a conversion cartridge, so you actually have to play this on original hardware. This was kind of the game that made me think, you know what, screw it, I'm just going to import my US Super Nintendo. So it's currently in transit to destination here, so I had my parents send that over to me so I can play all these games. But this is a really fun game. I love Zombies Ate My Neighbors. It's probably best played with 2 people. It is a really great pick up and play game. I would strongly recommend that you don't use passwords when you play it as well, because of a difficulty spike, of course, because the game is best suited when you progress organically and you have all the items acquired from previous levels to take down the new bad guys as they get stronger and smarter through I think it's 55 undeadly levels. So great game. I love this game, and I can't wait to actually play it on original hardware when my US SNES shows up. Here's another great one that says US import. Secret of Evermore. Secret of Evermore was developed by a Western division of Square. It takes that formula, the battle formula from Secret of Mana, kind of an interesting item and layout and UI setup with Zelda kind of top-down action RPG battle system. So it's a really cool kind of game. It's like Back to the Future meets, I don't even know. Basically, you play as a boy and his dog, and you travel through different time periods and essentially try and save the world, of course. This one's really special as well. This was one I replaced the battery on. This comes with all the cool things that you would expect inside. Of course, the plastic for the game, some manual here. I love that. You can see the Redmond, Washington, good old Nintendo of America thing there. All the alchemy formulas and charms and guides. What is this little illustration here? There's a little pup in there. Of course, you've got the information booklet. And one of the things that really sold me on this game as well was a poster. So check this out. This is really cool. And like I said, you really don't see stuff like this anymore unless you buy special editions or collector's editions. Back in the day, these things were dime a dozen. You know, people were buying these games and just all the special things would be inside. So that's really cool. Secret of Evermore is a great game. I've owned it before, of course, as you do in your 20s. You know, you sell things off because, you know, that's essentially what you do. When you don't have work, you use your video games as currency, unfortunately. But, you know, thankfully I was in a position again now where I could grab this again, and forever it will be in my collection now. Or should I say evermore? Here's an interesting one for you. This is Terranigma. This is a reproduction cartridge of Terranigma. I could go into the whole PAL versus NTSC thing. But essentially, this game was really popular in PAL regions. This was never released in NTSC, USA. It was a game released in Japan, of course, so you can play it in Japanese. But Western audiences in the US never played this game, so it's kind of an unknown title. So I'm interested to learn more about it. This comes in a very obvious box that's does not look factory authentic or original at all. It has a matte kind of print. You can see it's not glossy or whatever. You can tell the difference between our original boxes and reproduction boxes. So this is pretty cool. This comes with a PAL cartridge. I'm wondering if this will work on a United States Super Nintendo, because originally these PAL games ran at 50 hertz and NTSC games ran at 60 hertz. The difference between the two is PAL games ran slower, NTSC games ran at a normal speed. So I'm interested to try and compare the difference between a PAL Super Nintendo and a United States Super Nintendo. So if that went over your head, basically some games run fast, some games run slow, depending on where you go. It has to do with the electricity current and all that stuff. So there's some really great resources that you can look up. So if you look up 50 versus 60 hertz games on YouTube, that'll basically tell you all you need to know. I don't feel like going into an entire dialogue about that, simply because there's only so much that I know as well. So Terra Enigma, really cool game, and it's part of the Heaven and Earth trilogy as well, that Soul Blazer and Illusion of Gaia, or Illusion of Time as it's known in Europe, is part of. So kind of a top-down Zelda-y kind of Secret of Mana, even Secret of Evermore, action-based RPG. I can't wait to play this because from what I can tell, it's kind of an unknown gem. So hey, there we go. We've got it now. Some other games that I've grabbed locally here, NTSC games. This is pretty cool. And again, this is another one that has region lockout issues, so I couldn't play this on my PAL Super Nintendo using a converter cartridge. This is Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island. I've played this game before. I've beaten the game before, but of course I want to revisit it. I did just recently pick up Super Mario World that came with a Australian Super Nintendo, so I played through that. And of course we want to play through this, so I'll be playing through this on my Twitch channel and sometime in the next couple of weeks. This is a really cool game that takes advantage of the Super Effects chip. It has extra bits down here, so if we compare it to another game, you can see the difference in the extra, of course, cartridgeness that it has, whatever, to basically pump more graphical power into the Super Nintendo. Uses a lot of Mode 7 trickery, graphical trickery, for lack of a better word or phrase. But great game. I'm not sure if this one is available on the Switch or anything like that, but of course it is available on Virtual Console, and I think it's on the DS as well. Really great game, and I love the mechanic of saving Baby Mario while playing as Yoshi. A really cool callback to, of course, Super Mario World, where you play as Mario saving the dinosaurs. The dinosaur saves the human in the sequel to Mario World. Love it. Great game. I mentioned this just before. I've got Illusion of Gaia, or Illusion of Time as it's known, PAL regions. Great RPG, great game from Enix before they, of course, merged with Square. So I actually don't know really anything about this other than I wanted to play it. It's one of those games that have been sitting on my bucket list for many, many years. And of course, I can't wait to dive in. Now, I love the Mega Man games on the NES, the original Nintendo Entertainment System, but Mega Man X, I'm not sure what the angle is with Mega Man X and why exactly they made it. Perhaps maybe just to look more edgy, make Mega Man look more edgy. I do love the X series. X5 is probably my favorite, where you can play as Zero. I love Zero with the sword. I just love that whole aesthetic. Mega Man X, it's not my favorite game of all time, but of course I've been looking at the Facebook Marketplace for Super Nintendo games, and like I said, the NTSC games, you can usually find them a little bit, if not significantly cheaper than the PAL variants, of course, here in Australia. So the label's in pretty good shape. The back, however, is somewhat yellowed. So it is what it is. I may use some retro bright and try and brighten up the cartridge a little bit, but you know what? To be honest with you, I'm not fussed necessarily, as long as it plays, which it does play just fine. Although it won't play at the correct speed, playing it on a 50 hertz Super Nintendo. So like I said, I've got my American 60 hertz Super Nintendo on the way. Gee, isn't it just a headache having all the 50 versus 60 hertz stuff? Now, moving on to a game that I've bought here. This is a PAL game that is boxed. Super Adventure Island. I think this is a game in a series that was probably more popular in Europe and PAL regions, of course. So I don't really know anything about this, but when you see a game that's boxed for the Super Nintendo for 20 bucks on the Facebook Marketplace, you really just don't say no to it. Of course, I had to pay for shipping, but this looks like a really fun side scroller. I would hope to be able to get to this at some stage soon. Allegedly, it doesn't take more than 6 or 7 hours to beat it, so it technically could be a really fun stream game if I wanted to do a longer stream. But Super Adventure Island, cool game, and I can't wait to dive in a little bit more, as with everything. So it's going to sit in my backlog now. Okay, so because I decided to make the jump back to the past, as an angry video game nerd says, and embracing 16-bit as the genre of games that I want to collect most out of everything, I decided to have my parents send me my US Super Nintendo collection. So that just arrived in the mail yesterday. So it's really cool to see all these things again for the first time in many, many years. So I'm going to go through and show you guys the games that have been sitting in my collection on a shelf for many, many years, untouched and unplayed. So I can't wait to get these going again, replace the batteries so I can continue to play and save, of course. So this is a completed box game I bought when I was living in Australia back in 2015, of course, on the marketplace, Facebook Marketplace. I managed to score Super Castlevania 4 for like 80 bucks or something years and years ago. That's $80 Australian. So, I mean, you can do the math. It's probably maybe 65 US. So at that point in time, really great price for that. And I tell you what, since I've been collecting and doing a lot of research, I've been seeing how much these games have inflated. Honestly, it's shocking. So there's no better time than essentially like yesterday to get these games. So Super Castlevania 4, in my opinion, is where they perfected the Castlevania series. I do like, you know, some of the later games like Symphony of the Night, but I'm not the biggest fan of the Metroidvania genre. So Super Castlevania 4 is really, in my opinion, where they got it right. I think this uses a password system as well. I could be wrong. So that, you know, you progress through different levels. This is a really great graphical game as well. I think, it uses a lot of Mode 7 stuff. This is really fun. The music is really great in this game as well. There is one more Castlevania game on the Super Nintendo, which is Dracula X. Be prepared to have your hair blown back when you look how much that game is going for. But Super Castlevania 4, great game. Honestly, I recommend you guys check it out if you haven't done so already. Now, this is a game that I believe that I backed a Kickstarter for, or an Indiegogo or something like that. Sydney Hunter and the Caverns of Death. Now, this is a new Super Nintendo game that was released, I think, in like, 2017. So I've had this for 5 years or so now, and I've barely touched it. Essentially, it's like a cave explorer kind of Indiana Jones game. This is really cool. They had the artist who is responsible for the Garbage Pail Kids stuff come and illustrate the characters and stuff for the game. So you can check this out here. So this is you've got your manual, and this is a password-based game as well. So you have a spot at the very back to note your passwords, which is really cool. It's a very unique experience, of course, which I think a lot of people are unaware of, using passwords for games these days. And this was kind of spearheaded by John Gamester81. If you guys are familiar with him in the retro gaming circle, he's been on YouTube for many, many years now. He's a really nice guy, and he's helped me out with some video stuff before. So you'll see Gamester81 floating around on my Donkey Kong Country review from 2015 or something like that. So cool game. And like I said, Garbage Pail Kids guy came with 2 cards, Sydney Hunter cards, and the cartridge here. So I think somebody may be able to correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they were able to make new cartridges for this. So new cartridge molds. So that was one impressive feat for this particular campaign. So this game is available on a lot of modern consoles as well. So you can play it on, your Wii U, your PS4. I think it's even on the Vita. It's certainly on the Switch as well. And it's a game that usually goes on sale pretty frequently. So it's worth checking out. This is developed by CollectorVision as well. And CollectorVision has a really great reputation for making newer games for older consoles. So this is really cool. I don't know if you can get this anymore or if these are even still available, but it was really cool to be part of that campaign. So I'll maybe see if my name's floating around in this game somewhere in the credits. Okay, now moving on to games, like I said, that I've had. So these are the loose cartridges. So we'll just kind of flash through these quick. Super Mario World, classic game, classic Super Nintendo game, and likely probably the first Super Nintendo game that a lot of people played. It certainly was the first Super Nintendo game that I played. I didn't get into Super Nintendo until my senior year of high school, which was 2010 into 2011. It's not a system that I grew up playing. So oddly, I have a very nostalgic attachment to Super Nintendo because I don't know, I just gravitated towards it into my late teens. And of course, I've been obviously hooked ever since. F-Zero, another must play. Of course, you guys know about F-Zero, you know about Captain Falcon, you know all that stuff. He's been in Smash Brothers for many, many years. And of course, there's been no F-Zero representation until recently on the Nintendo Switch, where they released F-Zero 64 for the Switch Online service. Great game, great series. I hope to see more of that soon. This is another must-play, Donkey Kong Country, of course. If you want to learn more about it, I already have a retrospective on Donkey Kong Country, the making of it. I do have a few guest stars in the video as well, so go check that out. This is a really great game and has aged really, really, really well since obviously it came onto the Super Nintendo in 1994, I think. So great game. Go play it if you haven't. I gotta say, a lot of these games in my collection are must plays. And of course, Legend of Zelda Link to the Past. I like Zelda 1. I don't like Zelda 2, but Zelda Link to the Past, in my opinion, is really where they perfected the Zelda formula. And I prefer the 2D Zelda top-down Zelda game. I would like to see more of that. Of course, they did that with Link's Awakening remaster or remake for the Switch. I want to see more of that. I want to see more of this kind of Zelda, that top-down Zelda. It's the most classic Zelda, in my opinion. Great game. Go play it if you haven't. Of course, as with everything that I'm showing you. Turtles in Time. Turtles in Time is a really great game. I love Turtles. As a franchise, I want to get into the comics. I loved the movies growing up. I had some of the action figures. This is Turtles 4, so this is the 4th game in the Turtles series. A lot of these games are going to be available on the Cowabunga collection coming out soon for all modern platforms. So it's certainly going to make it a little bit easier on the wallet if you want to play Turtles 4, because again, with a lot of these games that I'm showing off, they're getting really, really high up there in terms of price. Now, I mentioned this before, Secret of Mana. It's not a sequel or prequel to Secret of Evermore. It's its own thing, and Secret of Evermore kind of borrowed that UI or battle system or whatever. But Secret of Mana is part of a series of 3 games. There's Secret of Mana 2, and then there's Secret of Mana 3, I think. So it's a really cool game that you can check out on modern consoles. I think it's in the Mana collection or something like that, but it's redone, it's remastered. It doesn't feel the same as the Super Nintendo counterpart, and I love these Super Nintendo games as they are, and they're perhaps sometimes imperfect state on the Super Nintendo. Now, I showed off Final Fantasy II not long ago, but I've got Final Fantasy III as well. This is a game that I have always kind of struggled with enjoying. I feel, in my opinion, for the longest time, it's a game that's been overhyped. And by the time I finally got to it, I was a victim of being overhyped for the game. I've played it to completion. I've done all that. I've played it, but I feel like I never really had a true appreciation for it until now, having played Final Fantasy II, which obviously preceded it. So I can imagine having played Final Fantasy II and then going up to this game where there's less characters, there's more emotional attachment going on. It's just a deeper story. There's no classes in this game. It's just you have characters and that's it. I actually kind of really want to replay this, even though I just couldn't be bothered to play it for the longest time. But I have more drive to get to it now that I've almost finished Final Fantasy II. So this is a great game. This is a good score. This is another one that's going up in price, even just for loose cartridges. So thank God I have this. So there you have it. That is a massive Super Nintendo haul video. So thank you so much if you've watched this far. Please make sure to give the video a thumbs up. Subscribe if you haven't already. Leave a comment down below if you've played any of these games or if you have any Super Nintendo games that you'd recommend picking up. Aside from that, if you want to stay tuned, if you want to stay in touch, we've got all my social media down below in the description box. Otherwise, I've also got a music cover project, a video game music cover project called Retro Game Remix. My latest record that I released digitally is called Livestream, which is a 14-track tribute album to Final Fantasy VII, one of the finest JRPG experiences of all time. There is a vinyl coming later in the year. If you want to support any of the music stuff, you can get some of the Boundless vinyl available through my distributor in the US, Trago Studio. There's merch on RetroGameRemix.com if you want to get into all that kind of stuff. But for now, just wanted to make a video showing off the amazing Super Nintendo haul that I managed to pull off, which I never thought possible, to be honest with you. So super stoked to have all that stuff now in my collection. I am never letting go. So thanks so much again for watching it. I hope you guys have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week, wherever and whenever you're watching this. Take care and stay tuned for the next video.